Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Minisode number 140. On today's Minisode, we're talking about how to make friends and deepen your current ones. You guys know, it's called the More Than Fitness podcast. With these Minisodes, typically I like to do a deeper dive into the fitness and nutrition stuff. However, I've been taking more questions lately, and I also like to branch out a little bit. So I know that not everyone's going to be interested in this one, but I think for the people who are interested, I hope you at least get something out of it. And so we'll go ahead and get right into it because I've got quite a few things to cover. Today's question comes from Katie. Katie's an avid listener of the podcast. Thank you, Katie, for your support and for your question. Katie asks, advice on moving to a new city, meeting new people, and doing so while in your late 20s. Right? So this was very convenient for me whenever I moved to New York City. Luckily, I had the power of social media where I was able to cultivate some friendships before I even got there. And I guess that's something that I will touch on soon. But if you do have a question for me to answer on these minisodes, you can submit your question. There's a link, there's a form in the description of this. Just click that link. You can stay anonymous or not. Fill out your question. I will make a podcast for you. Okay, Katie, my best advice with making new friends is cultivating serendipity. That's kind of the best way I can go about it. Serendipity is just when random shit happens and then it tends to work out. I think friendships is very much, at least any type of meaningful friendships is going to be whenever you're meeting new people, it's either going to be immediate because of maybe a mutual friend or something, which I actually don't even have written down, but that's a good idea. If you know anybody in the area, that's going to be your biggest in with other people because they've already probably got certain friends and things. And if they like you, there's a good chance their friends might like you as well. So that's how you can kind of cultivate that serendipity and kind of have a cheat code into other friend groups. I think so. Things like, like church groups, I think would be another example of this. I don't know your religion or not, but if you're into church groups, I think that would be an easy way of doing it. And then as I'll get into clubs and things as far as like sports clubs, etc. But friendships are very much patience and the long game. Because if you try to come on too strong, for most of the time, people will repel against that. If you're just immediately like, hey, I'm Katie, I'm here to be your friend. It's just like, that's super weird, you know? So don't do that. What I would recommend instead, and whenever I talk about cultivating serendipity, just simply live your life, go about your normal routine and day to day, and then keep an eye out for people that you see regularly. You know, it's just like this is what happens often. This is how you make gym friends. At least this is how I've always made gym friends. I don't say anything to people for often very long periods of time. But it's just like you go to the gym at the same time each day. Let's say you go at 5:30 every single day. Well, you see the 5:30 crew there. Like you see a bunch of different people, and oftentimes it's the same people over and over and over and over again. And the spark doesn't happen until you're maybe you've given each other quite a few head nods. You've said hello, whatever. You've kind of earned that trust of that other person. Like, hey, this is stuff we do, right? People like us do things like this. And the gym, I think, is very much a brotherhood and a sisterhood in that way of like, hey, we're all here for the gym. We're all chasing after the same thing. So you kind of already have that like interest in mind. And so with this, typically it does start with so using the gym as an example. I think other examples would be like if you go to a certain coffee shop, if you'd like to go to a restaurant that's close by your place, anything that's going to be again part of your normal routine that you do on a regular basis, and then you see these people, including people that are so let's say a coffee shop that are in the coffee shop, but then also the baristas, so the workers themselves are often, I don't want to say good targets, But it's like you have to have interactions with them. So then it doesn't even make it weird because you're not going out of your way to have a conversation with somebody. You're just talking to the barista. And so this means not going through the drive-through of a coffee shop. And of course, if there's tons of people in there, don't be a dick and just hold up the entire line by trying to have a very long conversation with somebody. However, if you go in there at a random time where maybe it's not very busy, that could be your move, right? So I think coffee shop would be one. So talking with the barista. You can also do this with bars, actually. It depends on the type of friends that you're wanting to make. But I saw a great article one time. It was talking about if you wanted to learn how to make a really good cocktail, well, then you go to a bar whenever it basically first opens up. And then whenever no one's really in there, after you've ordered maybe a drink or two from the bartender, maybe you've struck up some conversation, and then you can ask them, okay, hey, I'm interested in making these cocktails. How do I do this, right? Again, being aware, making sure there's not other people in there, they don't have other shit they're doing, and they're just kind of hanging out, then you probably have that permission to squeak that question in there and see how they respond. But then after that, this is all piecewise things. First, it starts with a couple nods and hellos, and just making sure that you guys both acknowledge, hey, we both do these same types of activities. And then, if let's say that barista is maybe talking to somebody else and they're having some type of conversation, and maybe they're talking loud, right? Maybe it's not like if it's an intimate conversation, obviously don't butt in. But if they're talking with somebody else and it's pretty loud and they obviously know that you can hear them, well, it's like, then maybe you can have something to offer to the conversation as well. And so maybe either offer something witty, tell a joke, if you're clever, or if you don't have the confidence to do that, the best thing you can do is ask questions, right? Because nobody's going to, of course, assuming it's not a private conversation, use your best judgment there. But assuming that you're genuinely curious about what they're talking about, they're not going to be like, hey, get out of here, for the most part. Some people might, but for the most part, you got to also take those chances, right? If you're going to make friends, this is kind of like dating with people. It's like, you just got to kind of take the chance, and the fear of rejection will always be there, but you've got to take those at bats. But asking questions is perfect for many different reasons. But if you're afraid of saying something stupid or them judging you or whatever, ask questions. Ask thoughtful questions and genuine questions. And so then after you've hit it off and maybe they laughed over something you said, or you're in the conversation now and things, and maybe you've connected in some way, then you can ask the barista or the other person, be like, hey, I know whatever, we've talked quite a few times, I see you in here all the time, what's your name? Because whenever you get to the name level, that's whenever it gets more personal, right? This is what happens in the gym whenever I meet somebody and then we end up shaking hands and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Matt. And then they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm Joe, right? And so then now every time you see them again, you can refer to them by their first name. And this is still like, you're still not asking anything of them yet, unless the moment is right and it seems to facilitate that conversation that way. But again, this is still a long game. You're playing chess, not checkers. And then so after talking with them and calling them by their name, remember their name. That's key. And the thing is, they probably won't remember your name because people just suck with names. And especially if it's a barista, they see tons of people, whatever. Don't worry about that. And it honestly, what I found is it makes a really good joke for next time because it kind of takes the pressure off them. And it's also a very like witty thing to say and very like self-deprecating thing. People love when people are self-deprecating because it just removes those walls. But you can keep calling them by their name. And if they keep calling you, I don't know what they call girls, hey girl, but with guys, it's usually, hey man, hey bro, hey dude, whatever. They use these other little names, these little nicknames, because they can't actually remember your real name. And so if you keep noticing that, if they keep doing that over and over, they're like, hey, listen, I know, like, you probably don't remember my name. I was like, my name's Katie, right? I know it's hard to remember names. You can make a joke about it, whatever. And then they're definitely going to remember your name from that point forward, right? But just don't make it awkward. Just be like, hey, I know it's super hard if you didn't remember my name's Matt. So yeah, there you go. So yes, go through all of that checklist and then after you start calling each other by name, then you start talking more. Maybe some other mutual interest comes up. You can talk about it further. You can follow each other on Instagram, on social media, which is also important. Make sure that your social media isn't terrible or creepy or something like that. I'm not talking to you specifically, Katie, but just in general, just make sure that your social media isn't completely weird, and make sure it's not just completely you, because that can be weird for some people. You want to make sure that you have a mix of your personality and people you hang out with and things that you care about, whatever. Just mix things up a little bit. The number one thing with all of this is that to be interesting, you have to be interested. I don't know who the guru is that said that pithy shit, but that is exactly right. Ask questions. If you don't know more about this stuff and you definitely want to learn more about making friends, buy the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It is excellent for anybody, but especially people who don't maybe have tons of extrovertedness or emotional intelligence or just that outgoingness that makes making friends a little bit easier, So definitely check that book out, making sure that I'm good on time here. But yes, if you are introverted, ask those questions. And just in general, it's a good idea to ask questions. But again, referring back to people who don't always know what to say and don't want to sound stupid, if you ask questions, as long as it's not completely stupid and you're genuinely asking, then most of the time people will respect that. I have a buddy named Estep, and don't get me wrong, he's super great at conversating. And one of the biggest reasons why he's so great at conversating and everybody likes him is because he's such a good question asker. It's just like, and people love to talk about themselves. It's the paradox that people don't think of is typically we think that we need to impress other people by all the things that we're saying. But I'm pretty sure research has shown that the person who talks more in the conversation, and I think this goes to sales and negotiating and everything, the person who talks more in the conversation is going to then like the other person more as opposed to the reverse. So it's like you think you need to impress people by talking about how smart you are and saying all these impressive things, but actually, whenever you ask better questions, that's really going to make the other person, at least the likelihood of them liking you, higher, right? Yeah, so buy that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And another common thing to do would be this is the one that I think most people think of. So you sign up for some type of club, whatever type of club it could be. It could be, some type of sport. It could be some type of team. I don't know. There's different things in different places, but checking out those local things. And again, if you're into church and stuff, you can go to church. Whatever. There's tons of things. You get the idea. But you can also search on Instagram, search the location that you're at. And I think that this is crucial because you can look at the top posts and you can also see recent posts as well. But look and see where a lot of people are getting pictures at. Look at see where a lot of people are hanging out at. So like, what are the hangout spots? What are the popular restaurants? What are the popular coffee shops? What are the popular bars, right? All these different places. Like, where are people in your city? Where's the most popular places? I think that can be super helpful as well. And then you can kind of notice, you can see people, and maybe you do notice somebody, and then you can choose to follow them or not, or whatever. Maybe because you've seen them over and over again. That's up to you. But I think that, again, this is really good at cultivating that serendipity. And the almost done here. One of the last things I have down here is to over-deliver for others, but expect nothing. Again, this is a rejection game. You're going to get rejected sometimes if you're trying to make new friends, just like you're going to be rejected if you try and make, or if you go on dates and things like that. That's okay. Keep your expectations low. And then also that clinginess and neediness to like have to make friends with somebody, that can also drive people away. And so if you just, whenever I say over deliver, I mean, you can go the extra mile for them, but don't expect them to do the same for you. That can just kind of keep your own expectations in check. And then with current friends, again, all of this stuff, I keep saying again, and it's pissing me off and I'm mindful of it because I've been doing this a while. For your current friends, of course, everything that I just mentioned is still going to be very applicable to them. But some of the things that I had down is for your current friends that maybe aren't in the new city and that are old friends. And this goes for anybody listening. But I think the first thing is be reliable and keep your word. That's going to be huge. Just make sure that you're somebody people can count on. The next one is going to be go deeper with the questions you ask. Since you've had these friends for a while, maybe you haven't asked super deep questions before and you haven't gone too many layers deep, or maybe there's other layers you could go or other avenues that you could explore. So go deeper with the questions that you ask. If you're far away from them, FaceTime them. Don't just text them. FaceTiming is going to be so much more helpful, that face-to-face interaction, or do Zoom calls. I've been doing Zoom calls with people from around the US with friends, and it's amazing. It's such a good, I did one for like 2.5 hours the other day, and it felt so great after I was done with it. So get some actual face-to-face time with them. Fly to see them if you can, right? This is what I had to do in New York. Probably every 3 months or so, I would want to fly back home, see my family and friends, actually have that one-to-one. Like, if it's important to you, you'll make time for it. Like, that's just kind of as simple as it is. Yeah, make an effort. And the last thing I have is send random memes, right? Start a group chat, figure out what they care about, and then send them random things towards that. I think it all just goes back to make an effort and just be a good friend and be a good person yourself. A lot of this stuff will come from taking care of yourself, and then you'll attract the right people that way. So that is it. That is what I have for you. Again, if you have a question, you can submit it in the link in the description. Rate, review, subscribe, all that fun shit if you like this. And that is it for Minisode number 140. Thank you guys, as always, for listening and for watching. See ya.